stuff that happens like right when we start is good shit that might as well be broadcasted to the whatever. But Evan, thank you for joining us. I do want to thank you. I probably, every time I see you say this, and you're probably tired of hearing about it, but you taught me everything I know about like the TV industry, all back to that YouTube video, 2012 participant TV 101. So I don't know how much you know about this thing we're doing on Fridays, this Friday Fodder, but I co-founded Float Left with Tom back in 2009, building some of the first Roku apps. But it wasn't until like 2012, 13, and 14 we started to work with all your legacy media companies doing their TV Everywhere apps. And I was just surprised, but also at the same time not, just how much we couldn't just communicate with each other about this common thing we're building, just because one side of the fence is legacy media people, and here are Kirby and Tom and us at Float Left. We're like internet people now building apps for TV. And so I like, probably for what was it, 9-part series or something, for probably like 2 weeks. Like I get a coffee 7 a.m. before work, just sit on the couch and watch TV 101 with Evan Shapiro.
Thanks. That's very kind of you. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to make that. That was, you know, it's funny, you go back and look at it and it's incredibly outdated. But you know, now instead of doing that as a video once in a while, I do it as a weekly newsletter. So I enjoy that even more.
And but I don't think we've ever spoke. Certainly have not spoken like this. But yeah, I was in the same boat. There was a point, it was probably around 2011, 2012, where things were really accelerating, where we were hyper-focused on Roku, but then we were realizing, wow, the industry is exploding around us. I need to get up to speed on this material like tomorrow. So I went out and found your series on YouTube and just watched that thing from start to finish. And, you know, I mean, some of it obviously was legacy, but that's the background that I lacked. I was more of on the software, the technical side, without a whole lot of exposure to the industry at the time. So it was a super helpful series that you put out there. So we appreciate it.
And the interesting thing about that is, you know, that was born out of, so that was a compression of my 14-week NYU class, which I started teaching just before that, year for that 2011. So I've been teaching that for a decade. And, you know, I get asked a lot why I teach at Fordham and I teach at NYU, and people ask me why I do that. And it's certainly not for the pay. It is that I can think about the industry through the eyes of the people who are entering it from, you know, their teenager or college years, and force myself to rethink the industry every semester. And if you do that, it enables you to, one, really keep readdressing the concerns or the needs of the industry. And then on the other standpoint, it gives you the ability to, or it gives you the practice of articulating how the business works in real time in a way that is very difficult, I think, when you're just so deep in it on a daily basis in these conference rooms without windows, focused on the hamster wheel in front of you, versus, you know, trying to zoom back out and think about the industry, you know, as if you have to wake up stupid and look at it new every day.
100%. Especially, I mean, especially as things evolved into the digital landscape and where we are today, it is evolving so fast that you need to be auditing your business and your strategy. I mean, I would argue every 30 days. It's almost like it's happening that fast. So, Kirby, I don't know if you have any. I mean, Evan, there's so much stuff. When I look at your background, I mean, it's endless. First of all, shout out to Cherry Hill. I don't know if you're from Cherry Hill, the area.
I am Cherry Hill. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I'm a Philly guy, so we're kind of
cool. Go Birds. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But I don't know, Kirby. What do you? I would love to get just a little bit of a background. And by the way, for anyone that is watching this that is not familiar with you personally and your background and what you're doing, I mean, maybe it would be helpful to just kind of give us the overview of where you started and how we got here right now.
Oh my God. Well, let me just add one thing, because this is what I want to just kind of ask and drill down in ESHAP. like the namesake, but you do a lot of shit. You mentioned the Fordham, you mentioned the NYU. You also have the Media Wars and Peace newsletter. That's amazing. Check it out if you're not subscribed to that. I had to write this all down, like various board seats. You produce things. What did I miss here? Of course, the top one, Media Universe Cartographer. So with all the stuff you do, like what?
Yeah,
like just focusing on ESHAP. What is ESHAP?
Yeah, so ESHAP is it's basically a content company. And by that, I mean pretty much anything that you would think of as content. So I'm also writing a comic book, which is set in hell, which will be released as an NFT. We produce Mike Novogratz's podcast. So Mike Novogratz is a crypto guru, one of the first movers in Bitcoin. He runs an incredibly progressive blockchain-based investment company called Galaxy Digital. We also produce some seminars for that company. Mike is also a big mover in criminal justice reform and also wrestling and hip hop. So we have lots of guests. Last week we had 2 weeks ago we had the new directors of the Kanye doc. This week we had Robert Rooks, who runs Reform, which is a criminal justice reform organization. So we also produce the podcast Roast of Your Teenage Self. We're about to release a scripted podcast, which I can't go into too much. We also do a tremendous amount of consultation for companies with regards to insight as a service. So I personally serve as the head of strategy for a couple of different companies. One, which connected television operating system company, kind of like Roku absent the dongle, called Foxum. We just launched a new media company with the two founders called D3, which wants to be the CNN of Web3. Last week, we released the first ever interview with the CEO of Yuga Labs, which is the company behind the Bored Apes. Yesterday, we released a great interview with Chris Dixon, who's the lead crypto investor for Andreessen Horowitz. That was founded by Laurie Segal and Derek Dodge. I serve as their head of strategy for that. And then we were commissioned to do a map of the gaming universe by SubNation. We were commissioned to do a map of the connected television universe by Foxum. And on an ongoing basis, we are hired to provide insight as a service. And that's kind of everything that you might think. If you need us to deep dive and do an assessment of your media properties, we'll do that. Right now, I'm helping a very interesting company in the theater space, which is actually my long background. I come from theater originally. Think about a new blockchain-based marketplace for intellectual property around theatrical IP. We're in the process of consulting on their Web3 strategy as well. And then, we do production for hire. So I produced a documentary for a client. On top of that, we're about to go produce a short form series for AMC Networks with Rhea Seehorn, who is the star of Better Call Saul, as a co-producer and star and director of that. I'm about to launch a podcast called Cancel Culture, which is about, so the premise of it is for BIPOC, queer, and diverse young female comedy writers write a joke each week about a controversial third rail topic that a cisgendered old white dude can tell without getting canceled. And I am that cisgendered old male white dude. And the first episode will be about rape. And so, we do a lot of different things. And the concept is, as long as we're putting content out in the world, we are making progress. It is in retrospect a company that is designed to be a creator economy enterprise. I very much feel that the world is bifurcating into two major channels. So back in the day, TV bifurcated it into broadcast and cable, and then TV and streaming. And we are now watching the content bifurcate into two major channels: the corporate economy channel and the creator content economy channel. And NFTs are an example of that, but so are subscriber-based podcasts. So is Roblox, who will pay creators of games probably close to $1 billion for creating games this year. So I publish on LinkedIn every day as a service to the readers of LinkedIn. I publish on War and Peace twice a week as a service to those subscribers. And that really creates this virtuous circle where we put content out in the world. It makes people like you reach out to us, and we transact in an exchange of values between us, the creators of either the content or the insight, and you, the users of that content and the insight, and trade. And value is going to be central to that. As far as where I came from, I moved to New York to write and direct. I worked in theater. I got to a point where I was the head of marketing for the New York Shakespeare Festival and Shakespeare in the Park. I then started my own agency for live entertainment. We moved into film and television and then web 1.0. I then went and worked in television, first in marketing for Core TV and then IFC. Then I ran channels. IFC, I helped buy Sundance Channel. So I produced, I helped co-create Portlandia. I went to Participant and created a television enterprise there. I went to NBC and created CISO. And there was a long Vulture article recently.
I saw that one, yeah.
And then I moved out on my own and started producing and consulting, and it's been a fun ride the entire time. I have failed more times than I have succeeded in my career, but I have also learned more from those failures than I ever have from any of the successes. So it's a really nice time to be a producer and thinker in this space, as long as you wake up stupid every day.
Yeah.
One thing
that's
I'm really
the quickest version I can.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Version I can.
No, I couldn't expect it any quicker. I mean, doing a lot of shit. A question I have for you, because I'll admit this is kind of my downfall. This is the bane of what I do. It's also the excitement. Is you do a lot of things. Like, how do you deal with context switching? Like, for me, that's a tough one. Like, going to do this, now I'm producing the show, now I need to write a media War and Peace thing. Like, how do you handle that? Do you thrive in it?
Yeah, I a long time ago, I made a decision to not try to create a work-life balance, because I feel like that's a myth, in that a balance, kind of constitutes when one thing goes up, the other thing goes down. I look at my life and my career and my to-do list as a boat in a rowing contest. Those thin boats with all the oarsmen or oarswomen in them, and all the oars have to go in the same direction. I try to make everything one of those oars. And so if they're all going in the same direction, then the boat goes forward and makes progress. The second you try to do something that is out of sync with the rest of it, you go in circles. And so I make a decision on whether or not to do something if it fits in with the existing set of things. And so everything to me is content creation, even this conversation. Every tweet, every post, every deck. And if it doesn't fit in there, then I typically don't take it in. I dedicate 2 hours every morning, reading, 1 to writing every morning. And that is super clarifying. It teaches me something new every day, and it allows me to help distill the things I learn into an articulatable and transferable piece of knowledge to the outside world. I have a really good team. I trust them. I don't ask them to do things I wouldn't do myself. And I cancel a lot of meetings. I'll make meetings, and then at the beginning of every week and the beginning of every day, I look at something and I say, there's just not enough breathing room there. So if there isn't enough breathing room in the day, then I cancel it. My number of unanswered emails is as low as it possibly can be on an everyday. My goal is to get to 0 whenever I can. Right now, I have 9 unanswered emails inbox. I know because I've read all of them and I know exactly what I need to say to them. And then I designate time to do that. I spend probably 10 hours every weekend writing, drafting the things that are necessary for the following week. I also had kids really super early. So I had my first kid at 28, my second kid at 31. And so I don't have a lot of the concerns that a lot of people our age do. Like I don't have soccer games to drive to on weekends. I don't have, babies to feed. And so that creates a lot of space in my universe that is that other people do not have. I've been married 30 years, so I'm not on Tinder. It's just there's a lot of things that life takes up that doesn't leave space for creativity that I got out of the way early in my life. And now I have more time for the things that make me a creative person. I also don't have any hobbies. I don't golf. I don't do things that, like, my hobbies are my job and the Eagles. Unfortunately. Not to say I don't have fun, but my fun is sitting around and watching TV or, going out to dinner. And I see a lot of theater because I'm a Tony voter. So it's a very specific lifestyle I've designed for myself, which is very high output. I also have a genetic defect, which just requires me to put out content on a constant basis. I don't know where it came from, and I don't know how to make it stop. But it is, like some people can run for 26 miles. I can't do that. I can write 10,000 words a day without thinking twice about it. And it's just something that God graced me with. And I'm just very appreciative of that, frankly.
And what a skill to have in today's environment with this whole idea of the creator economy, which I know that you've touched on a couple of articles. I myself have dove headfirst into the creator economy in January. So now I'm sort of in what you're kind of doing in the mornings, where I'm basically getting up, I'm spending an hour reading, I'm spending an hour writing every day. The writing process for me has helped give me clarity around the topics and just my own thoughts. And it's been an incredible, over just the last 2 or 3 months of doing that consistently every single day. It's really given me a lot of clarity around just my own thoughts. I have so many ideas and things that are bouncing around. So it has been actually therapy for me. So I can completely relate to what you're saying. And I would just finish with saying that if you're doing anything today, any kind of business venture, promoting anything, you need to be writing every single day and promoting yourself and creating content. Maybe not writing, but producing content every single day to get yourself out there and to get used to that. Just the practice of doing it. Just me getting in my chair every single day and just getting used to doing the work every single day has been, it's been difficult.
Yeah. Look, I'll tell you, there are days I'm like, I don't fucking want to write this article. But I force myself to do it. And it does, it is, first of all, it keeps you young. To me, there's no data that proves this, but it's an Alzheimer's prevention mechanism. Like the more you use the muscles in your brain, the more healthy those muscles are. There are definitely weekends. I have this comic book I'm writing. There are definitely weekends I do not want. It's hard to write a comic book because you have to think on panels and things like that, and it's very, very difficult. I love writing dialogue, but that type of format. But again, it just the level of satisfaction that you get from completing something like that is it's better than drugs. It's, and I'm not to say it is better than drugs, the high
Right.
that you get from it. And even if you don't put it out there, writing your thoughts down about what's going on in your life, whether you're journaling or just writing it for yourself or just clarifying your own kind of strategy for your life, it is very good exercise for your brain. But to your point, I will say this. I say this all the time. Like, LinkedIn is this great mechanism but everybody uses it as a self-congratulatory tool. And I'm not to say I don't do that, but I typically don't. I typically am just putting out content. Content is marketing. Marketing is not content. And if you have a business that you're trying to sell, or you have a career that you're trying to drive, and you think by posting things about yourself and reward, hey, I did this great thing, look at me, people don't, what they do like is learning stuff. And so a better form of marketing is saying, here are the things I know, here are the things I'm learning, here are the things I've learned. I'm sharing them with you so you can use them as best practices or cautionary tales. People really dig that, and the LinkedIn algorithm loves it. It wants content, it wants to push content out. So I agree with you on that level as well.
Yeah, I've been really trying to find my groove on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been this platform that I think a lot of people still don't realize how powerful it is in terms of just the amount of visibility that you get for being someone that has hardly anyone that's following you. The amount of, like, the algorithm, once it connects with a post, how much distribution it can drive is actually incredible. So yeah,
100%.
Get used to that.
I mean, almost all of the business I have from the consulting side has come from LinkedIn. In fact, I would say, if not 100%, then 98%. Even people I'm working with who I've known for years, the reason they reached out to give me a certain assignment is because they read something I wrote on LinkedIn or on my Substack. And so it is a very, 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 very powerful tool. Alan Wilk, who runs TV Rev, like, he publishes his whole thing on there, and he sees that it is very, very powerful for him. So it is the most powerful is the most powerful social media platform for your business out there, without question. Unless you're a consumer products company, but even then, it's a pretty powerful tool. And you can either use it correctly or use it incorrectly, and I think you'll know right away. That's the other thing. The feedback loop is so powerful.
Yeah. Oh man, I could talk to you for days about this, because like there's a whole other philosophy about, like, because I had waited years to really get aggressive with my content in general. I mean, I was running a company, so that was part of it, but also just like my own fears of publishing and what are people going to think, and fear of judgment and all that. And just how amazing it is when you just say, screw it, and just hit publish, and like, just let it all go, and amazing things happen. And it's such a supportive community as well. Very little judgment. Mostly the people that are commenting are very supportive and all that. So it's been really cool. Yeah.
Until you're wrong, Tom. Like when you said Philly has the best pizza. Like,
did I say that? Oh, did I say that on LinkedIn?
Yeah. No, you didn't say that.
I'm from Philly, and I wouldn't even say that Philly has the best pizza.
I don't think I've said Philly has the best. I just said maybe consider it as an alternative to some. There was a conversation about multiple pizza. I don't know.
I actually try to incorporate food or drinks into every one of these. I don't count that as getting it in there yet. But Evan, you mentioned strategy of life.
Well, I will have. No,
go ahead.
I was going to say Connecticut.
You go.
But go ahead.
Oh, New Haven style?
Yeah, New Haven.
Okay,
style,
nice.
Absolutely.
All right. Strategy of life. I heard this. I heard this bit of a story. I'll apply my own context to it. You tell me if this is true or not. So I'm a believer in law of attraction, The Secret and all that, and kind of manifesting things and shit. Like, so much is like showing me that that's something I should stick with. But during your court TV days, I don't know, let's just say it's a hallway. You said to somebody, I'm going to run a network one day. And sure as shit, you did. Do you remember that at all?
100%.
Saying that?
Yeah, it was Jen Caserta. We were having a conversation, and we were hanging out, and I said, yeah, I was 30 at the time. And I said, I'm going to run a network. I said, I'm going to run a network within 2 years. And
that's what it was. It's exactly what it was.
Fuck if I didn't.
So I don't know Jen, but I got this story from Mark Kang like a few years
yeah?
ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I told it to him too.
Nice. I'm bringing all the old Court TV, the TV 101 stuff. Big fan, of course. You wrote an article last week or the week before talking about being the CEO of your own shit, and I haven't had a chance to read that article you wrote. Which, by the way, where is that? Was that on where would I read that article?
So I posted the short version of it on LinkedIn, and as I do, I use that as a way to drive people to the paywall. That's on my Substack, my newsletter.
Okay, so I'm a subscriber. I actually missed that one, but I did catch the LinkedIn thing, which really resonated with just conversations that Tom and I had. I mean, this podcast thing we're doing really doesn't follow a format, but the theme has been entrepreneur driven. Like everybody we've spoken to has started companies, and like you want to talk like for example, like what's the advice you'd give somebody that's looking to take a leap from one discipline to the other, like somebody that's trying to pivot in their career? Like what advice would you give that person?
Yeah, that was how the whole thing started. I think I hear this thing about myself, which is you pivot a lot. And I pivoted from theater into TV, from TV into digital, from digital into film, now into Web3, and into punditry and all these other kind of things. Not always by my own choice. I have been fired, and I know that's hard to believe, just given how nice a person I am. But the key here is to be ready to pivot before you're required to. And so thing number one is waking up stupid every day, teaching yourself something new every single day about the industry that you're in or about the world that you want to live in. If you do that, you're always going to be kind of seeing around the corners. And CISO is a great example of something that was just ahead of its time. And I've been kind of 15 minutes ahead of the curve, and not in a great way, like too early to certain things. Like Pivot, which was a project that I worked on at Participant Media. I wanted that to be an IP only driven television property. The MVPDs were not prepared for that. But the key here is really understanding what your own superpower is. Chances are it's not cable distribution or programming or business affairs. It's not the job description you have. Your superpower probably rests deeper within you and has something to do with your analytical skills or your interpersonal skills or your communication skills or your creative skills that have not necessarily anything to do with the job description that you have, but more your ability to do certain tasks a certain way. The journey towards understanding what your superpower is, understanding what the thing is that you may be able to do better than anyone else. That is a very important journey to go on. And knowing what that is about yourself, or at least working every day to find out what that is, and then understanding how to articulate that, and then understanding how to bottle that and take it with you wherever you go, so that if you are at a big company and you feel like you're being underappreciated, you can demand more for it, or take your special talents to somewhere else when it's time. And we're in the greatest workers economy in the history of our lives. It has never been a better time to be a worker looking for a job. There are more jobs than there are workers, and salaries are actually increasing for the first time in a long time. And that means your special talents are probably in demand in a way that they've never been before, and will increasingly be so, at least for the near term. Being able to talk about who you are and what you do and what you're better at than other people is incredibly important. Being able to promote that is incredibly important. And then having the faith in yourself to push for the things that you want, say the things that you need, and take the risks on yourself that you need to in order to get to where you want to be. Important factors in being CEO of your own shit. It takes some bravery. And Tom said it earlier, it's like it's risky to hit publish, and say something provocative. But I think the last 36 months have proved more than any time in our collective lifetimes, probably at any time since World War II, that life is too short to chase paychecks and titles. Life is too short to work at a job you don't like. Life is too short to work in a culture that is corrosive or bad for you. Life is too short to not do the things that you believe you are great at. And no one is going to be happy if their gravestone says was a great middle manager. You want to leave something in the world that makes it a better place and makes people want to remember you for having made it a better place, not how much money you have in the bank. And I've definitely limited my earnings because I've said the things that are on my mind. But I have very much found, especially in the last 24 months, that there's a currency around that. There's a currency in learning the things you need to learn, articulating them in a way that people understand, and standing behind the values that you hold important, regardless of what the market says to you. That in and of itself a currency. And if you can do that, you can transact on it. It may sound crass and commercial, but you have to sell something in this world in order to survive. And why not sell the things you believe in versus the shit that you're forced to?
Evan, I just have to say one thing. I mean, there's so much to unpack there because, I had gone through this exercise myself with, this idea of like, so running this company for 12 years, coming out of that, and you said it perfectly, like trying to identify what your superpower is. That is such a hard thing to do. I don't think people realize how hard, like everyone says, like, so, okay, you're going to put yourself out there. Step one is to identify your target. Who's your audience? What's your niche? What are you going to, dig into? And you think about it, you're like, oh, I do all these things really well. And that's fairly straightforward. But when you really dig into it and you start to, as you said, bottle it and try to package it into something that you can deliver on a regular basis, is extremely difficult to do. So yeah, I mean, I just wanted to just say that. And then also the fact that life is too short. I couldn't agree more. I mean, COVID has taught us anything. It's establish your personal brand, and which I think is what you're kind of alluding to. I don't know if you would call it a personal brand,
sure,
but for sure that we all have a responsibility to, like you said, identify your superpower, cultivate those things and those skills, and work on that, because that is something that is going to transfer with you no matter where you go and what you do in life. So yeah, I love all that. That makes
that map that I think a lot of people know me for now, which is super weird because I'm not a designer. I'm not a data scientist. I'm not a cartographer. And yet what I think most people now know me for, at least in the last couple of years, is this piece of data science meets design meets map making. And, I make this in PowerPoint, by the way. That's how not a designer I am.
I was going to ask you what you use to make this.
Yeah, so all PowerPoint. Yeah. And
just real quick, because I have this, every time I see this, I have the same two questions. I just never bothered to ask. I just bottle them. One, how is he creating this? Two, are you, every time you get there's a new earnings call or something published, like, are you manually going into, like, zooming in on part of the map and manually changing it? Or is this thing connected to data sources, like a database? Just all manual?
No,
This is a handmade, all PowerPoint.
This is a handmade piece of art. But I mean, what this does is this is who I am more than anything else, probably than I've ever. It is a piece of storytelling, which is something I consider. I want to be a storyteller. I want to be an artist. However, it also is it's a puzzle solver. It is a problem solver. It is a way of taking the world and looking at it upside down, that helps people see a new point of view on it. And it is a piece of communication. I like to be a kind of articulator of things. And, it is also kind of very contrary to the way everybody else thinks about the world. The people will tell you there's only so much information you can put on a slide. People can only look at so much information at one time. And to that, I say, have you ever looked at a baseball box score? Because that's just fucking untrue. People love lots of information. They can take it in. And that map is a really good example of that, which is all the information you need about the media universe is on that one page. You can look at it for hours and still see something new about it, but the zoom out is also just as important as the zoom in. I am working on an automated version of it right now. That would be kind of AI driven and then allow you to zoom in. It's a major project. So I'm talking to a couple different people about that. But published on that map. I made that for my NYU, my Fordham class, actually. That was not meant to be a consumer product. That was not meant to be something for the rest of the world. That was meant to help me teach my class at Fordham. And then Deadline published it, and it turned into a business. And
I mean, there's an example of just like when you just push things out into the world, right? That things that you don't even know could happen. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just had to say that. And the fact that I hear so many people just sort of sitting on information and knowledge and not sharing it because it's not the right time, or, they don't have everything figured out. They don't even have the data to evaluate and be able to make that decision until they start to get that feedback loop working, which is, again, which you've just proven by putting something out there that you didn't know that thing was going to make such an impact, and look at it, right? So very cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get calls from colleges who want to teach it in their media classes. I get calls from CFOs who want to put it in their year-end reports. I get calls from CFOs who or heads of communications from major corporations who are like, "Why aren't we on this map?" And I'm like, "I don't know, because I didn't think about it. So do you want to talk about that?" And then suddenly we have a relationship. And it was an accident. It was a happy accident. But if I had it at Fordham, I wouldn't have thought to do the map. And that's a really good example of like, put yourself in situations where you can learn something about yourself and the world, and it does create a sense of momentum. Action creates momentum, and especially right now, everybody has to figure out a way to be a self-contained package of their own worth. There's no company on earth that's going to value you more than you value yourself. And if you can't take everything that you're worth with you wherever you go, then you're going to be tied to a job and a chair and a cubicle. And now is not the time to do that. Companies have proven that they're more interested in the bottom, their consumers or their employees. And the world is changing too fast to be tied to one specific job title for the rest of your life. And so, if it's not cartography, think about joining a nonprofit organization on the board and meeting new people and doing new things in a passion area of yours. And chances are you're going to find new opportunities by accident that way. Teach a class, mentor students, take chances in your life, not only because they're good for the world, but also because they're good for the world, but also because it just will force you to do things differently than you did the day before.
Yeah, for sure.
Evan, do you ever think about minting that very first map as an NFT? Because that's pre some mergers that already happened. That's going to be pre Discovery, Warner Bros. It's going to be pre, let's say Roku gets acquired or Paramount Global. Like that's a cool that's a nice little relic. The first map.
Yeah, well, first of all, Roku will be this year, so I'll tell you that. And I don't have any inside knowledge. I do not see how they sustain as a self-contained company. So there's that. But secondarily, the thing is I'm very down on the PFP NFT. I don't think that. Look, I think that there's collectible art that will be valuable. The Beeple $70 million piece, and we're actually doing an interview with Beeple next week at his gallery, nice. And we're doing an interview with Beeple at South by Southwest as well. So, and a true artist like that, or Tori Spears, who issued their album as an NFT. Like, I do think there's going to be a market for true art as NFTs. But these profile pic NFTs that are just kind of basically JPEGs and GIFs as NFTs, like, I think that's a fad. But what I am obsessed with is NFTs as a membership, NFTs as a utility. So Bored Ape is a PFP NFT, but it is also a club. And that club comes with very distinct benefits. The first benefit being you get offered other NFT projects before anybody else in the world because you're the Bored Ape Club, Bored Ape Yacht Club. So
just real quick,
membership.
Just for everyone that may not still be aware of NFTs, right? We're talking about non-fungible tokens. We're talking about the idea that this is essentially being able to claim ownership of digital items, audio, images, video, which I want to get to in a moment. What is PFP?
PFP is profile pic. So CryptoPunks is a PFP NFT. Bored Ape Yacht Club is a NFT, and typically what these things have been is just like series of art projects that have intrinsic value on them. And the Bored Ape Yacht Club is cool looking. You know, I wouldn't necessarily call it fine art, but it is definitely a cool image, and people use it as a badge of honor. But because it is so few human beings who are actually in that club, you know, the average price for a Bored Ape Yacht Club NFT right now, I think, is like $400,000. The highest price one was $3 or $4 million, actually a couple of weeks ago by Justin Bieber. But it is also an exclusive club. It is the Soho House of NFTs. Really moving is not necessarily a collectible. So there's going to be the collectible end of NFTs. Pieces of intellectual property that are very valuable because they are works of art, or they are, here's a Duke Snyder baseball card, like collectibles, comic books. Those are going to be actually pretty valuable items in NFTs, and NFTs were perfectly made for things like comic books. However, there's the other end of things like Links DAO and Pool Suite and a couple of others where the NFT isn't actually a work of art. It's a membership card. It is a pass to get into other things. Pool Suite is, I don't know what their benefits are going to be, but Links DAO offered, I think 10,000 NFTs. And the whole idea was you bought your membership card. It is literally just a card. It is not enables you to be in an investment club where you're going to buy golf courses and other property. There's going to be more NFT as because an NFT is a non-fungible token. It doesn't mean it's a collectible. It means it's a file. And that file should, and increasingly will, have utility. I am hyper-focused of the new media subscription model. So instead of the number one way people subscribe to my Substack, so you can subscribe to my Substack either as free, $5 a month, $50.05 a year, or you can get a lifetime membership for $111.11. Okay. The number one category of subscriber on my Substack is lifetime. Think about that.
Yeah.
Somebody's paying $111.11 on the promise that over the course of our collective lives, I'm going to provide more than $111.11 in value. That's basically an NFT as a subscription. That's where it's headed. The floor on ETH on a lot of projects is like 0.1 ETH, which is around $200, $300 right now. So that's basically a lifetime subscription to whatever the fuck this NFT is, right?
Right.
So instead of subscribing to Kazine or a newspaper, remember newspapers? Think about the idea that you can get in on a lifetime membership, and that NFT will not only get you lifetime access to an exclusive pool of content, but it's also going to allow you to contribute to the community as decision-making goes. You know, you're going to give feedback to the creators of that community. You're going to have a Discord where you have an open conversation with them. You look at the death of cable and you think about where media subscription is going. And to me, the NFT is actually an answer to that problem.
Gotcha. Yeah, I actually, one of the questions that I had for you is, where does the intersection happen with, digital media content today, television today, and Web3 and or NFTs and or blockchain? What is that? And maybe you've just kind of outlined the beginnings of that, but do you have what's your take on the convergence of all those things? And in other words, how are we using blockchain to consume subscription services like we are today? Is that going to be a currency or a method for transactions that some of these, or going to be selling maybe exclusive rights to some of this content? I mean, how do you see it playing out?
So I think there's a confusion between the hyperbole and the bullshit and the actual reality of it. So if you think about Web3, we're not in the first inning, we're in batting practice. We're in warm-ups. All right. So we're nowhere near where because the technology is just not there yet. Like, think about Fortnite, which is one of the great metaverses in Web3. Right now, the battle royale in Fortnite, it sounds like you can fight with anybody on the planet, right? No, you're limited 100-person pod. Fortnite limits itself to 100 people because that's all the technology can handle right now. When Ariana Grande did her concert in Fortnite, millions of people watched it, but 100-person pods. It was not everybody watching it in real time together. It was actually small groups of 100 watching it together, kind of with a broadcast across all these pods. As the technology improves and improves, then the universality of it will also improve. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is, like I just said, blockchain enables, what blockchain is to demystify it, it is just a very, 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 very smart version of a contract, which is why they call it a smart contract. It literally doesn't require auditing. It doesn't require attorneys. You write it at the beginning, you agree to it, and then the supercomputer that is across the planet Earth regulates it, right? The decentralization comes along the fact that DAOs and Bitcoin in particular, everybody has to vote for it in order for something to happen. Those things together, and I think media in the blockchain exists something along the lines of, instead of paying a monthly fee for something, you'll buy a token, and that token will enable you to a certain amount of content over a certain period of time. And wherever you plug that token in, if you're in a hotel room, you'll be able to plunk it down on a device, and then your content will spring up on the big screen in front of you. Right? You kind of can do that today. Like what's it called on iPhones?
AirPlay.
AirPlay on yeah. So but think about taking your phone, which will have your crypto wallet on it, and just plunking it on a device, and then all of the media in the room automatically knows. It knows what video you can play on the video player. It connects your credit card to the front desk, so you don't have to worry about charging stuff on your room. Like, think about buying a ticket with an NFT and showing up at the theater, instead of having to show your ID and your Vax card and all this other kind of, scan your QR code, and then suddenly it takes you right to your seat, and you get your souvenir after, and everything's self-contained. To me, that's the promise of where the blockchain is going. It additionally will allow people to invest in film and TV and theater in a way that is very much new school, and you're not going to need attorneys and audits in order to make sure that all the money goes to the right places. So those are the two major pieces of functionality. And I also am, really curious to see what happens to these Travis Scott and Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande concerts when there's a theater in Upland or Sandbox or Decentraland where you can, go see a show in real time. But I don't think it's going to replace TV. I don't think it's going to replace film. Like, we've been around a long time. TV and film are pretty much almost the same that they were. The storytelling is getting more complex and the filmmaking is getting more technical. But at the end of the day, Ozark is still just fucking soap opera, right? At the end of the day, Squid Game is an unbelievably great post-apocalyptical, fantasy story with a morality play at the center of it. So, let's not fool ourselves. It's not going to change the types of stories that we tell. Give us more outlets to tell them in.
Makes perfect sense. Yep.
So we have like 9 minutes, and you mentioned kind of we've been around, like basically same at the end. I'm going to pull up your fast map, which you released, and and because you were the guy kind of like my liaison to TV as we knew it, and do you think there's a lot of parallels with what's happening with fast with like the cable or multi-channel era?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a linear feed supported by ads. It's TV. And what's happening is, after years of what seemed to be an unlimited appetite for subscription packages on television, there's now this pendulum swing back the other way, where people are actually beginning to cut back on the number of subscriptions, or more accurately, people who are young parents or recent graduates are just not subscribing to as much as they did when they lived in their parents' house. And so it's not so much a desubscription as it is a nevering of subscriptions. And so if you're a 40-year-old and you chances are you don't have a cable package, but you do have Netflix, you do have Amazon Prime, and you do have YouTube. But where are you getting your news from in the morning? Chances are you're getting it from a free streaming channel, like either NBC or ABC, that are coming over an app on your television screen or on your Roku, or on your Fire Stick or on your phone. So I see a tremendous amount of parallels around what cable television, because like if you just look at Women's Sports Network, which I wrote about last week and is going to launch this summer, it looks, I call it SHE-ESPN. It looks a lot like the launch of ESPN. So the problem is unlike cable, there's no affiliate fees underpinning the economics of it. And so the hundreds of millions of dollars that allowed Mad Men to be created, because AMC had been really benefiting from very high cable subscription fees for a very long time before coming, and The Shield and all these other things, that's not there in Fast. And so what are the economic underpinnings of it? And it'll be interesting to see. I think what you're going to find out is the major media companies who have paid streaming services are going to start. I think David Zaslav hinted just this week that Discovery hasn't gotten into Fast yet. If Discovery and Scripps got into Fast, they would quickly become the most watched channels in Fast, because everything they do, it screams success in Fast. And I see it as a new revenue stream for them, not one that takes away from something else. I think if you could watch The Sopranos on Fast right now, you would. You can't really get it except paying for it on HBO Max. So I think you're going to see a lot of the same players, and they're all doing it. Peacock has a Fast. HBO Max is an AVOD in addition to being an SVOD. Discovery Plus is an AVOD in addition to being an SVOD. So I do think you're going to see a lot of the big companies move into it. I also think you're going to see, I think Fast is going to be one of the major supporters of the news ecosystem. I think you're going to see local news in particular, I think is going to do incredibly. It's needed. You need the local weather. You need the local traffic. You need the local sports. And if you're not a cable subscriber and you don't really want to hook up an antenna, because who wants to do that? What are you going to do? Fast is a great answer for that.
The two big things that Fast brings to me, and I think consumers alike, are one, just that passive viewing. It's been talked about, and I have two little kids, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Basically, I turn on Pluto TV and watch Bar Rescue or Three's Company. That's my go-to. If you interrupt me, cool, no problem. I've seen that one where Jack punches a police officer a million times. We're cool. Or I've seen John Taffer berate enough people, if I miss it, it's cool. But the big thing, and I talked about this last week on our podcast, is when I did this whole cable removal experiment, what I lost is serendipity. And what I mean by that, in a purely on-demand ecosystem, you just make your programming choices based on 3 main criteria, unless you know exactly what you want to watch, what the cover art or thumbnail looks like, what the talent or the synopsis. And you're going to inevitably miss a lot of cool shit that you just don't like how it looks. I don't like those kind of movies. And this happened to me many times. Talk about Discovery. There's a show they did. It wouldn't be something I typically would watch. Dual Survival. I've been watched it all. I love that show, but it's something that I had to be exposed to in a linear format. It's kind of like going to use record shopping, like where you got to sample the vinyl or the CD before you leave the store, because nothing's worse than like, hey, this is only $3.99, get it. It sucks. But like being able to sample it, you really get to like, you're gonna find some uncovered gems.
Yeah, the other component is this siloing of thought in America. We live in our own confirmation bubbles, and the people who watch Squid Game are the people who watch Squid Game, the people who watch Yellowstone are the people who watch Yellowstone, and rare is the twain that they shall meet, and that's a shame. There was this great meme that passed over the internet this weekend. Judd Apatow said he would get to watch Maude Apatow's show Euphoria after he was finished watching Yellowstone. And to me, that's kind of everything that's wrong with America right now. I mean, yes, the great thing about the golden age of television is no matter what your passion point is, you can find great television in that genre. The problem is there's no more All in the Family. There's no meeting place for the meatheads and the Archies to watch the same set of facts and ideas presented at the same time. And that's how you get the level of division we have in this country right now. I'm hoping we can create some collisions, some serendipity out there. I think you're right. That's what we're missing, is that shared hearth from the community and content experience.
Definitely new perspective of thought for me. That's really interesting. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I wrote a piece about that too on my Substack about
Tom, you should sign up.
Family.
I'm already signed up.
Okay, good. I didn't even know there was a lifetime option. Well, I'm pretty sure I paid like $50 for a year.
Evan, I want to make sure you have time to plug anything that you want to plug. Where do you want people to check out what you've got going on, other than obviously your LinkedIn, but what websites?
Yeah, so right now, if you go to my Twitter feed, you'll see a lot of the stuff that I'm. 3 has a really important interview with Chris Dixon this week that I would check out. Mike Novogratz has a really important interview with Robert Rooks, who runs Reform. Roast to Your Teenage Self is a really great, funny podcast that I think you would really enjoy. And then I have this comic book NFT coming out probably in April called Darkland. That is if Veep and Game of Thrones had a baby that lived in hell. That is Darkland, a political dramedy where Satan is the lead character. So look for that as well.
Very
awesome.
Interesting.
And real quick, I think I dropped this on your webinar on Wednesday. I think Walmart. I said in 2019, I'm just hoping it works, so I can just point to that time. I said Walmart was going to buy Roku. I think Walmart, also Redbox, could be interesting too. But I know you have other companies that might.
Yeah, I think it's probably either Microsoft or Apple would be my bet, because Apple doesn't have a plug and play television product that really is popular, and Microsoft has Xbox. But they don't have a television product really. So I think, both, and they both have so much money that buying Roku, they have the money to buy Roku in the cushions in the executive suite. So,
And you talk a lot about $1 trillion Death Stars. What's the first company that's going to reach trillion in revenue? Not market cap.
In revenue. Well, it's probably going to be Amazon, I would have to say. I just think if anybody has that bet, it would be, they have the greatest corporate flywheel in history. And, their ad business was 31 billion last year, which is more revenue than all of Netflix. And it's 6% of their company. They're making money off of all 3 of us right now, and we're not using the product. They're about to raise their prices on Amazon Prime, and they won't lose any subscribers as a result. They could probably raise it another $10 and no one will. While I do think that they have anti-competitive practices, at the same time, I also believe they are probably the stickiest rundle, in the history of media. So,
yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Evan, for dropping by. I know you got to go, so have a good weekend. Thank you so much. See you, Tom.
Thanks. You too. Enjoy.